Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a super provocative, highly critical short text today, and it's called The Commercialization of Helplessness. You know, whether you work in healthcare yourself or you're just a regular person trying to navigate the wild world of modern wellness, buying the supplements, testing out the latest fitness fads, or just dealing with the medical system, this material is definitely going to make you stop and think. The author here is making a really stark, unvarnished argument. They're saying that the medical and wellness industries don't just, treat illness, they actually thrive financially on our sheer inability to help ourselves. The claim is that these massive global industries aren't built on the ultimate goal of absolute health. Nope. Instead, they're built on maintaining a continuous, highly profitable state of vulnerability. So we're going to impartially map out the logic of this text step by step, just to really understand the mechanics of this deeply controversial perspective.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The business of helplessness. Profit versus independence.
So the source immediately sets up this battleground between a person's personal autonomy and a corporation's bottom line. The whole premise here rests on the idea that true, unshakable independence, well, that's actually terrible for business. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is incredibly lucrative. The author anchors this argument with one very specific phrase. Listen closely to this. There is business where there is helplessness. I'm going to say that one more time, deliberately, just to really let it sink in. There is business where there is helplessness. The author really isn't mincing words here. According to this text, vulnerability isn't just some unfortunate human condition that businesses are altruistically trying to solve. Rather, vulnerability is literally the foundation, the raw material of the entire marketplace. The logic is, if there's no helplessness, if there's no problem you can't solve completely on your own, well, then there's simply no commerce.
Breaking that down a bit further, the text points to three very specific, very heavy emotions that supposedly drive this whole financial engine. Helpless, hopeless, useless. The source is claiming that money is made and massive business empires are generated only when a person deeply feels these three things. I mean, think about a time you felt entirely stuck with a health or wellness issue. When we feel out of our depth, incapable, or just fearful that we can't improve our situation, what do? We reach for our wallets, right? We pay for an external solution. The text posits that the financial system doesn't just passively benefit from you feeling stuck, it actually requires it as a baseline operating condition. Think about it. If you wake up feeling completely capable, profoundly optimistic, and perfectly useful, you're not exactly out there desperately seeking things to buy to fix yourself.
And this brilliantly illustrates the central conflict here. The text outlines two totally distinct profiles. On one side, you have the ideal consumer in this proposed model, someone who is completely dependent on the system. On the other side, you have the system's absolute worst nightmare, a person who relies on their own choices. The dependent person is constantly seeking guidance, continuous treatments, and endless products. But the reliable person, the one who trusts their own decisions when it comes to diet, lifestyle, and basic care, they just remove themselves from the sales funnel entirely. So why does this matter to us? Well, because the text argues that your personal autonomy, your actual ability to make sound, reliable decisions for yourself, stands in direct, fundamental opposition to the financial goals of the health and wellness industries.
Moving right along, Section 2, the medical progress paradox. Why better tech doesn't mean less profit.
Okay, so we've established the premise that helplessness is profitable. But wait a minute, we live in an era of totally unprecedented scientific breakthrough. And this leads the author to point out a truly fascinating logical contradiction. Think about almost any other industry. When computing gets better, data storage gets cheaper. When engineering improves, everyday tools last longer and solve problems permanently. The expected outcome of real progress is always that the problem shrinks. So ideally, with the rapid, mind-blowing advancement of medical technology, modern drugs, and the absolute latest diagnostic tools, we should be curing way more people, permanently. And if we're completely curing more people, the healthcare sector, pharmaceutical companies, and health insurance giants should theoretically anyway see a massive dip in their profits year over year. Better tech should mean significantly fewer sick people, which mathematically should equal a lot less money spent on healthcare.
But here is the multi-trillion-dollar question for you. Why haven't industry profits dropped? Seriously, if our technology is getting infinitely better at detecting and mapping out the human body, why is the healthcare and wellness sector consistently making more money than ever before in human history? The author observes this glaring gap between miraculous technological advancement and compounding financial reality and suggests there is a very deliberate, structured reason why those profits haven't dipped.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our third section, treating symptoms, not causes, the hidden business mechanism.
This is where the text explains how the industry supposedly maintains its skyrocketing profits even while possessing the technology to cure. The source claims that every business in this sector is fundamentally based on providing instant, temporary treatments rather than permanent fixes. It's basically like selling the ultimate Band-Aid. Imagine two companies, right? Company A creates a protocol that completely eliminates an ailment forever. Boom, done. Company B creates a pill that you have to take every single morning just to keep the symptoms at bay. From a purely financial, profit-driven perspective, Company B is building a multi-billion-dollar empire, while Company A is actively putting itself out of business. According to the author's argument, eliminating the root cause eliminates the customer entirely. Therefore, the business model relies heavily on managing the problem over a lifetime rather than solving it once and for all.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the author completely redefines the idea of repeated customers in this specific ecosystem. You know, in a normal business, like your local coffee shop or a shoe brand, a repeat customer is just someone who loves the quality of your product and happily comes back for more. But in the context of this text, repeated customers are starkly defined as sick people who are perpetually dependent on the health and wellness sectors. The author asserts that every sector related to health and wellness simply will not survive financially unless there is an ever-growing number of these perpetually sick, dependent individuals. The industry's continued survival and expansion, in this deeply critical view, is intrinsically predicated on the failure to fully heal the patient. Simply put, if they heal you, you don't come back.
All right, let's head into our final section, the psychology of dependency, the beliefs that keep us hooked.
For this perpetual business model to actually work, for people to willingly accept temporary fixes over and over again and remain repeat customers for decades, they have to be cultivated into the exact right mindset. The industry needs you to believe certain foundational things about yourself. So the crucial point is how the text outlines these specific limiting beliefs that the industry actively relies upon as part of a subtle psychological campaign. According to the source, there's only business when a person genuinely believes they can do nothing. When they believe they fundamentally lack control over their own health and fitness, when they believe they're incapable of taking care of themselves or making their own healthy choices. The really profound argument here is that the commercialization of helplessness isn't just about aggressively marketing pills or physical treatments. It's an ongoing psychological strategy. It demands you internalize the idea that health is something that happens to you rather than something you actively participate in. The idea is, by convincing you that you are inherently incapable, you willingly outsource your health entirely to the system.
Wow, right? We've just unpacked a deeply critical, totally paradigm-shifting view of the very systems designed and trusted to keep us well. The author paints an unyielding picture of an industry where your independence is treated as a financial liability and your perpetual sickness is logged as a valuable recurring corporate asset. It challenges the entire narrative of modern medical progress we're constantly sold, and it forces us to look really closely at the psychological hooks of consumer health. So based on the provocative text we've explored and mapped out today, I want to leave you with this final crucial thought to ponder. Are our health choices truly our own, or are we just repeat customers in the business of helplessness? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep asking the big questions.